Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today, as this is a Monday podcast where we focus on a particular astrological topic or theme. And today we're going to discuss the main astrology of June 2024. Yes, we are in the 6th month of the year already. And what we have going on this month really focuses on adaptability, flexibility, and being honest with yourself about what is closing out and transitioning away because you don't need it anymore. You don't need to carry it. You don't need to hold it. You don't need it in your energy field. And you certainly don't need it pulling you back or keeping you circling in a pattern that you've outgrown. Throughout the month of June, we're going to have a strong dance between planets in Gemini and planets in Pisces. Now, both of these are mutable signs that are comfortable with adapting, remaining flexible, also remaining open, perhaps scattered and restless, not knowing what to do, not knowing what to choose. And this could be a month that brings up for you what your choices are that can take you forward versus the choices that you're already completing and phasing out. And that's because Saturn is also going to be influential this month. Saturn will station retrograde on June 29th at 3:05 p.m. That's Eastern Time. And Saturn in Pisces stations retrograde at 19 degrees. And it's going to be moving slowly throughout the month of June. And so this slowdown is very intentional when you look at it through the lens of Saturn, where there is meant to be something that you're deciding you no longer want, you no longer need, and it's completing for you at an energetic and spiritual level. Saturn in Pisces is revealing how much we've grown in the past 30 years in our lives, in our emotional selves, in our maturity, what we have learned along the way, and what we are realizing is needed to phase out. We don't have to continue to connect our energy to it. Saturn wants to help empty us, release, unravel, and finalize what we don't need to take forward, especially in the new cycle that will begin once Saturn enters Aries. But for this year, Saturn will station retrograde at 19 degrees of Pisces and travel back to 12 degrees of Pisces until November 15th. And so this can be a good time for you to further clear out what maybe you were afraid to let go of previously. But the more you tune into it and tap into it, you realize, I'm really done with this and I'm okay with letting it go. It's all right to just close it out and to not allow this into my energy, into my life, into my physical environment. Wherever Saturn in Pisces is in your chart is where you are moving through significant soul endings. And this is further emphasized with Neptune in Pisces at 29 degrees as well. So not only is Saturn in Pisces holding you to task, really wanting you to carefully evaluate your choices and next steps, but throughout the month of June, Neptune is hanging out at 29 degrees of Pisces and will get all the way to 29 degrees, 56 minutes of Pisces. Now, in the world of astrology, this is a big deal. When you see those minutes at 56 minutes, that means only 3 minutes remain of the full zodiac wheel. So here's Neptune and Pisces at the very, very end of the zodiac, completing a 165-year cycle, but just hanging out there, just hanging out in that openness, in that surrender of the next potential that's not here yet. I did a separate podcast episode for you on the significance of this Neptune in Pisces at 29 degrees. And June is going to highlight for you more of where you feel relief. This is an exhale. This is a big exhale. This is a release point that could surprise you. It could almost feel like you're so exhausted from something. You're just so worn out. You're so tired of it, right? Whatever the lesson is, the healing, the spiritual practice. I mean, this is a point of exhaustion at 29 degrees of Pisces, and that's to be honored. There's beautiful spiritual intention around exhaustion because it means it's time to rest. It's time to do less. It's time to let yourself off the hook and do something that requires minimal effort, minimal investment. This is where you could realize, I'm really tired from something, especially in the Pisces areas of your chart, especially something that you've been very aware of healing, moving through, processing. When Neptune is in Pisces, it brings up basically our unconscious collection of spiritual lessons. And it's like, here it comes to the forefront. All these things you didn't realize were unfinished. All these things that you thought you had completed or closed out. And then Neptune in Pisces, since 2011, has been showing you more of what you need to energetically work through and what has remained unfinished across multiple lifetimes. And then you get all of it presented right in front of you over the course of 14 or 15 years, and it feels like this intense deep dive of never-ending karma, never-ending spiritual lessons and healing, things that you think, okay, I'm finally done. And then in comes round 5, or then you get your next serving that perhaps relates to other timelines, other lifetimes, other things that your soul has been holding for you. Your soul has been this provider of ongoing spiritual lessons that are meant to be essential for your spiritual growth. But let's be real, it's exhausting. It's downright exhausting. And this is a month where you could be waving that white flag, calling out for mercy, or just realizing what has taken its toll. And all of this would mean it's time to take a break, to step back, to not think or expect yourself to maintain a certain pace. Rather, this is about a surrender and a declaration of completions. Now, Neptune returns to 29 degrees of Pisces into early 2026, but this is when there is an intense focus on what is wrapping up and ending, and you could feel that rising in you. You could even want to ask for energy to be cleared while you're in your dream state. In fact, that would be very supportive and very wise, where before you go to sleep or take a nap or even meditate, this is where you ask for the unraveling to be gentle, to be kind, to be compassionate. Also be sure to ask for affirmations of what you have completed and released, because if you're too close to it or you don't see the bigger picture, you can miss that. But I feel there is also an energy here of truly being recognized for what you have moved through and the deep spiritual lessons that you at a soul level agreed to close out and finish in this lifetime. And that's especially important to note because Neptune is not in Pisces in every lifetime. It takes 164 to 165 years for Neptune to move through all 12 astrology signs. So when Neptune is in a sign in a lifetime, it's where your spiritual growth is focused. It's where you do more to surrender, detach, step back, and let go. It's also where we experience more transitions in our life, including loss, disappointment, the desire to escape and not deal with reality. It's the part of you that can feel overwhelmed by all the energies on the planet right now. And that alone could be something you're really feeling that you want to detach from and pull back from. So in June, you're going to perhaps be strongly feeling what your body needs and what your energy needs that could be in direct contrast to the mind. And that's because in June, we have strong Gemini energy. We're going to have the Sun, Venus, Mercury, and Jupiter all in Gemini, which activates more of our daily energy, our minds, our communications. It opens up more things to do and get done. There could be a busyness, and there could be a sense of excitement. I want to do this. I want to go here. I want to take care of that. Gemini is about the energy in your immediate environment, your local space. It's connected to where we go on a daily basis to run our lives. And at a personal level, it's about the mind. It's what you are reading, what you're looking at on your phone, what you're responding to. It opens up how you think, how you communicate, and what you want to do that is interesting, that is fun. Gemini likes stimuli and likes to be active, likes to be busy, wants to go out and check out that new restaurant, wants to plan a fun staycation. All of that is common in June, but it gets even bigger with Jupiter entering Gemini for the first time since 2012 and 2013. Now, throughout the month of June, Jupiter travels from 1 degree to 8 degrees of Gemini and is moving rather fast, but it's good to note the territory that Jupiter is moving through, as it's going to make things bigger for you and bring them alive in a way that perhaps could be easy, joyful, resourceful, almost like that was simpler than you thought it would be. And that's a key word, is thought, because that is what Gemini rules. So there's a busyness in our mind. There's a busyness in our daily world, and there's an accelerated busyness in our world overall. But what this comes up against are those planets in Pisces that are actually showing you where you're tired, where you need a break, and where you would prefer to do less. So June is going to be an interesting month where, yes, you might agree to something, or sure, you want to do it, you would love to be there. But then when you check in with your body or you check in with your energy level, you realize, I don't think I want to commit to that. I actually feel too busy. I'm at capacity already. I don't think I can take one more thing. And so in a way, this could feel a little bit like things fall through. The best laid plans don't happen because as each planet, specifically the Sun, Mercury, and Venus, square both Saturn and Neptune this month, things are ending, things don't show up, things disappear. That's especially true the first half of the month, even until let's say June 20th. So let's call it the first 2/3 of the month. So the majority of June, stay flexible with yourself and with other people because their mind is going to change. They're going to say yes and be into it and really want it to happen. And then they could realize, oh, we're already booked that weekend. I've double committed. That's something that can come up with strong Gemini and strong Pisces energy, is that you forget the other plans you made, especially if it's not on the calendar, or you get overwhelmed by all the things going on and you don't know what to choose. This could be a month where you realize, I actually want to do less, not more. And you could be declining things just to keep your own sanity or to stay on top of your priorities. This could also be a month where you don't want to rush to say yes or say no. And sometimes that Gemini energy will respond too quickly. And that's where you get a change of mind and you get people saying, oh, sorry, I didn't think that through. So even though it could be tricky, try to slow it down and give yourself more time to think through things. And that will depend on your natal Mercury. Your natal Mercury might feel overwhelmed depending on how you naturally process things. You might feel like there's just too much happening, I can't keep up. That's especially true if your Mercury is in an earth sign. The earth signs are Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. They want things to be steady, clear, verifiable. Mercury in the earth signs wants you to determine the plan and the details and what's realistically expected or required. And this could be a month where it feels like people are flaky or scattered. They don't get back to you. They're distracted. They're planning their big summer trip, whatever it might be. So just know that there's an energy in the air that could feel really restless. Even though it's excitable, it could feel like people are unreliable. And as always, check in with your own energy and check in and see, am I feeling unreliable? Am I feeling scattered? And if so, then there are ways that you can ground into that and go slower. Now, the other thing that's happening this month energetically is that we are expanding. And I see it through the third eye and the crown chakra. And you can relate this to the third eye and the strong Gemini influences that are working with both the right and left hemisphere, because I'm seeing this as the third eye chakra being the yin and yang symbol spinning and almost spinning too fast. It's almost like, and this is bad, but getting the visual of a carousel that's spinning too fast and things are flying off. I mean, no harm and no damage by sharing that visual with you, but it's a spinning energy of a yin and yang symbol on the third eye chakra that is trying to either keep up or recalibrate itself with the new frequencies on the planet, especially all of the solar flares that we've been receiving and how the planet is accelerating as well. So I'm seeing it as our minds are trying and desperately wanting to evolve. And that would be one of the higher expressions of all this Gemini, where our computer systems want to be able to take in more information and more details, and yet it could override it. I'm getting that, that flashing system override message where it's like, it's too much. And that could be part of what you're figuring out. I'm also feeling like there could be intense sleep this month where everything is turned up to 11 and then your body and your energy systems feel like they crash because they need deep rest and to really detach from the intensity of everything that is spinning and moving quickly. So do keep that in mind, that there could be an all or nothing energy this month where you're all in, you're all focused, and then you're completely offline. You're untouchable, you don't want to be reached, and you need that deep sleep or that deep rest in order to come back and start again. So I feel like our third eye chakras are moving quickly this month. They are accelerating and getting up to speed with these new frequencies that have been entering our planet and affecting our individual energy fields. And this could be quite fascinating to feel and observe in yourself, because we are becoming more psychic. We are becoming more intuitive, but the mind doubts it. The mind questions it. The mind is probably the last to believe it at times, especially depending, again, on your natal Mercury, because often we are programmed to need proof for something to be valid. And this is how we are changing timelines. Our mental track is changing timelines, and June is going to be a big month for that, where you could feel that your mind has shifted into more of your intuitive or psychic gifts. You could feel like that intense spinning of your third eye chakra has basically taken you off of one timeline and moved you to another, and now you're getting more images, downloads, and understandings that aren't verifiable yet in the physical world. There is responsibility with this. There is absolutely responsibility with this. And it doesn't mean it's all 100% true or 100% accurate. But what we're learning is that we have access to more information outside of the mind, outside of the visual verifications that the brain seeks. And we are learning to work with that, to trust it, and to allow it to be part of our overall navigation system on this planet. So we are living with all these streams of information, data, and specifics coming through, and we're learning to decipher and discern what actually feels accurate to me, what is resonating even outside of what my mind wants to believe. And I feel this is going to be a big theme in June, where you could have that sense of the Gemini planets are bringing in one type of energy stream and the Pisces planets are bringing in another. And the confusion shows up when you don't know what to believe or trust, and when those two timelines don't intersect, where it feels like on the one hand it's this and on the other hand it's that, and I don't know what to believe. And that could also be a very honest description of the energies too. So strong Gemini and strong Pisces this month are opening us up. Now, I mentioned how it's working with our third eye chakra. It's also deeply expanding the crown chakra, which is where those Pisces energies can both download and release, because the Pisces energy can come down and then it goes back up. And so there's things that you're meant to release through that crown chakra, and it's almost like you're releasing one version or one layer of energy, and that allows another version to come through or another higher understanding to arrive. So there's going to be a lot working with us in the top chakras. This also relates to the throat chakra, which is Gemini as well. And so that could be something that you're also exfoliating and flushing out. You're learning how to speak your truth in a new way. You're learning how to integrate these new feelings and to trust them. And honestly, it could be hard to put words to them. It could be hard to conceptualize it, to explain it to others. And if that's how it feels, then certainly trust that. So strong Gemini and strong Pisces this month are both elevating us, but keep in mind the confusion is real, and the best you can do at times is slow down. Slow down the energy and listen to your body, listen to yourself, and not act too fast, because that's where you could realize that wasn't the best choice, or you find yourself backtracking to start again. Now, after the planets are in Gemini, they then move into Cancer. And as the planets move into Cancer, they are each going to square the nodes of fate between 14 to 11 degrees, because we have that north node moving from 14 to 11 degrees of Aries, the south node moving from 14 to 11 degrees of Libra. And the planets in Cancer, which will be Mercury and Venus, who both enter Cancer June 17th, followed by the Sun entering Cancer on June 20th. As they go to square the nodes of fate, there is a checking in point. There is assessing, does this feel correct for me? Does this feel right? How is my heart doing? And that's what comes up for us as planets move from Gemini into Cancer, is that we then drop the energy into the heart space and look at how everything we've been doing, saying, taking in, how our thoughts are so focused with the Gemini energy that it takes a beat to drop it into the heart space and to understand, maybe this doesn't feel right, or maybe this feels amazing, or maybe this isn't correct for me, or maybe I'm overdoing it, and that Cancer energy brings me into my self-care and checking in with what I truly need. So the second half of the month, as Mercury squares the nodes of fate, which will happen on June 23rd and 24th, and then Venus squares the nodes June 27th and June 28th, there's a checking in point here on what still feels correct for you, and it can bring up more of what the eclipse energies were requiring you to shift and change. So I feel like we're moving into a territory here that is going to bring us into what you need that might have been overlooked, that might have been out of balance. And in this energy, you could arrive at something that has been squashed, that was overlooked, that was repressed and pushed down. There can be emotional release points when planets in Cancer square the nodes of fate. There can be parts of yourself that come forward rather strongly so that you really feel it. You're really aware of what those unconscious messages are. And they're unconscious because planets in Cancer are used to absorbing energies in their space, used to taking on others' needs and others' energies, especially at a younger age. And it's at this younger age that is quite impressionable, quite receptive, love, and there's a desire to love and to be loved. And as planets move through Cancer, this younger version of yourself, these needs that you had when you were younger and not tapped into or conscious of what they meant, they can arise, and they can arise quickly and unexpectedly. So do keep in mind that as the planets move into Cancer and they begin to square the nodes of fate, there's going to be new messages coming up for you to be aware of. With Cancer, we often say nurture, to nurture yourself, which means to be kind to yourself, to be loving, to be accepting. This is where self-parenting also shows up, because you could be giving yourself what you need that you didn't receive when you were younger, that you're realizing, I really needed to be cared for in this way, and that's not the experience I had. That was never taught to me. That was never shown to me. The higher elevated expressions of Cancer are where you're connected to your needs. You are clear on how to take care of yourself and honor those messages. And you also aren't overdoing it for others. You're not being everyone's mother. You're not accommodating everyone's needs. I also think of it as you're not mothering or smothering others, and you can apply boundaries as needed. And that is always a lesson with the water signs, is being clear on those boundaries, being clear on what is yours to experience or to support and what is not. And that could be something that comes up in the second half of June and into July. Now, there's two other important energies here in June that I want to discuss. And keep in mind that this is just an overview, as it always is for this monthly topic. And then we discuss it more in the Wednesday podcast episodes, where we go through the energies of the week ahead. Another theme in June is that Uranus in Taurus enters new territory. Uranus will move to 24 and 25 degrees of Taurus and has not been here in this degree space for about 84 years or so. And that's a big deal. When an outer planet moves into new degree territory, especially Uranus, the earth starts shaking, new energies are opened up, and there are new activations that happen, especially if you have planets or points at 24 or 25 degrees. So 24 to 25 degrees of Taurus is going to feel this intensity. It also applies to the fixed signs. So 24 to 25 degrees of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius. This is where Uranus comes through and change is happening. It can be very disruptive and unexpected. This is a fast-moving, accelerated energy with Uranus that also removes. It takes things away quickly. It collapses that building quickly. It can feel like an immediate demolishment, especially when it goes across the degree point the first time. The first time is when the energy is more intense, it's bigger and louder. And that's the universe showing you this is what has to change. This is what is not connected to who you really are. And that Uranus energy is tapped into your authenticity frequency, to who you really are. And you could be unaware of what has been holding you captive, what has been too heavy, too stressful, too much. And Uranus says, it's gone. Cut the cord, take out the trash, throw out the baby and the bath water and anything that was in the bathtub. It's all gone. And this, of course, can be quite stressful and traumatic as well. And that is something to be aware of when Uranus is interacting with a new degree point in your chart, is that it's going to stir up more change. And it can be so destabilizing that you don't know what to do. The outer planets, such as Uranus, are connected to generational influences, things you've been doing unconsciously, things you've been doing because you thought you had to. It was expected of you. Uranus is the astrological rebel. Uranus wants you to revolt against the man, wants you to take a stand against something that you thought you had to stay in line for or that you thought you had to obey. Uranus is like, nope, let's set you free. Here's the keys to the handcuffs and here's the password to get you out. So ultimately, there is something to be liberated from, but it doesn't feel that way when the first transit of Uranus moves across those degree points. Instead, it's shattering, it's shocking, and there could be a part of you that absolutely doesn't agree with it, doesn't want it. But the Uranus energy works in a 1.5-year timeline. And so it will take a 1.5 years or so for this to be more steady and clear. Keep in mind that if you have planets or points at 24 or 25 degrees of Virgo or Capricorn, this is going to be supportive transformation and transitions. Same if you have planets or points at 24 or 25 degrees of Cancer or Pisces, because Uranus is making a sextile to those degree points in your chart. And that's going to move things along. That's going to help you elevate and get to that next version in your life. And that could feel like supportive change. So if this Uranus and Taurus is trining or sextiling planets or points in Cancer, Virgo, Capricorn, or Pisces, you're ready for this change and you could feel it. It could be palpable. You could sense, okay, this is finally happening. So Uranus does move you forward and does want you to do something new and different and to move into what is more authentically you. And it could be surprising at what you realize with these Uranus transits, because what you realize is that what you thought you wanted, you really don't, especially in Taurus. Taurus is where we've been experiencing these shakeups and instability with resources, with money. It's inflation. It's the cost of goods rising and the cost of our daily lifestyle changing. It's also where we're learning to think things through and look at, what do I have to rely on in the global supply chain versus what can I buy locally? How can I invest my energy and my money and time in a better way that's more fulfilling? Where am I overstretched? Where do I need a backup plan? That's another Uranus in Taurus theme, is that the one thing you thought was sturdy and reliable turns out it's not. And here you are having to create or recreate something as a backup plan. Uranus will keep traveling ahead and enter into new degree territory until it stations retrograde on September 1st at 27 degrees of Taurus. So do keep in mind that Uranus being direct in these new degree territories is a big deal astrologically and is going to open up even more surprises and new things that we have to figure out or recreate in the Taurus areas of your chart. And then the final astrological energy I wanted to touch on in June 2024 is the energy of a full Venus. A full Venus occurs when Venus is direct and conjunct the Sun 4 years after she was retrograde and conjunct the Sun. That's when she was a new Venus. So back in June 2020, June 3rd, 2020, Venus was conjunct the Sun in Gemini at 13 degrees 36 minutes. Now, 4 years later, on June 4th, she will be conjunct the Sun in Gemini again at 14 degrees 30 minutes of Gemini. And this is a 4-year growth period to look at what you began 4 years ago in June 2020 that is now ripe, that is now blooming and blossoming in the Gemini areas of your chart. At 13 to 14 degrees, Venus has had a revival, and she is opening up more for you, specifically through the Gemini energies, which symbolize 2 tracks. It's going back to that yin and yang, the left and the right, duality. And there could be 2 ideas coming to life, 2 parts of yourself that are opening up. This full Venus is essentially giving birth to something that you've had to move through, reassess, reevaluate. You've had to do work on it. When Venus was retrograde in Gemini back in 2020, we had to figure things out in a new way. And with that Venus influence, it was about relationships and connections, also your self-love, how you talk to yourself, what thoughts consume your mind, that then creates what you gravitate towards to learn about, to understand, to read, to watch. Now in June 2024, this Venus is coming to life with new understandings, new awareness around her own mental activity and the power of the mind, and how the power of the mind dictates how we spend our time. If you're heavily focused on a topic for school, let's say, obviously that is something that you're studying, you're learning, researching, writing about, and it can be all consuming. She's learning that she doesn't have to overdo it and how to manage her mind, how to manage the power of her thoughts. This is also about allowing new understandings and concepts to come through that keep you adaptable and flexible. It's sort of like if you go into the worst case scenario, then how do you pull yourself back to a neutral point and focus on the best case scenario? Conversely, if you are overly optimistic and you idealize and you think everything's going to happen perfectly, you also have to bring yourself back to a neutral point and check in with reality and be more practical, more grounded in, okay, the best possible, most ideal outcome could happen, but even if it doesn't, even if there's delays, even if there's things that show up that take longer or appear to be distractions, I'm still going to be clear in how I choose to work with the energy. So Venus in Gemini is actually strongest at a neutral point and being more objective, being more aware that things can happen in any direction. But if you remain neutral in what you want, that will help you remain flexible and open to whatever might transpire. I'm specifically thinking about travel and how nowadays it's really common for people to travel with their carry-ons. And then when you get to the gate, they make an announcement to say, okay, there's too many people bringing carry-on, so you're going to have to gate check it. And as long as you're flexible in adapting to what's needed, it's no big deal. But it's being too rigid that is the problem with Gemini energy. It's not knowing how to make another choice on the spot or to be in flow with your natural environment or what's happening. This full Venus in Gemini is going to give you insights into what that looks like for you, especially on a daily basis. Could also show you where you're not flexible, where you're too rigid or strict. And there could also be a fullness here related to your connections, and that is Venus. Venus is about how we want to relate to others based on how we relate to ourselves. So you could be assessing how your relationships have changed over the past 4 years, what you've been learning about connection, because Gemini is learning. It's how we take in information and ponder it and think about it and determine if it resonates, and then also how you're willing to do something differently. So this could be a month where something comes up for you around connections, siblings, women, children, and spouses, where your flexibility is rewarded. Your ability to understand what needs to change is exactly how to handle it. There can also be a rebirth in these connections based on what Venus has been learning over the past 4 years. So the Gemini areas of your chart are very active this month. There's a lot going on. And again, it could feel like it's too much at times, but it only lasts for a few weeks. And then we move into Cancer season, as the sun will enter Cancer on June 20th. And we call that the summer solstice here in the northern hemisphere, or the winter solstice in the southern hemisphere. The sun enters Cancer June 20th at 4:50 p.m. Eastern time. And that's also when their energy feels like it peaks and then it tapers off, meaning there's a softness that comes in as we move into Cancer season. And we're really ready for a break from the busyness of life, the busyness of the school year or work. And that's also when we can say that summer begins and we're ready for those vacations and something relaxing to look forward to. So as I mentioned, we'll talk more about the specifics of the month of June in the Wednesday podcast episode. And that will give you more about how the planets are interacting and how they're moving. But this show is just an overview of the energies of the month and some of the themes to look at in your chart. So on that note, you do want to be aware of what is coming alive and being activated for you in the Gemini house or houses in your chart. And then you also want to be looking at your Pisces houses, because that's where Saturn and Neptune are working, and they are going to be squaring off with those planets in Gemini, especially the first 3 weeks of the month. Then as we move into Cancer season and the planets move into Cancer, they begin to trine those planets in Pisces. They trine Saturn and Neptune, and that's where you feel relief. So keep that in mind, that if there is a lot happening in the first 3 weeks of the month, it's going to lead you to relief and greater relaxation as the planets move into Cancer. And you're like, yes, that was the right choice. I'm glad I did that. My energy feels better. I feel more open to whatever comes next. Don't take too much on because it might only exhaust you. It could be too much. And you could be realizing, I don't want my life to be at capacity. I don't want it to be this much every day. What can I let go of? What new routines are a better fit? What can I shift or change that is more supportive of how I want to live my life? And what can I close out or step away from? So allow this to be a month of choice points that serves you for the long term. And also allow this to be a month that opens you up to more of those downloads and understandings of how to use your energy more responsibly. If you have a birthday this month in June, then happy birthday to you. I hope wonderful blessings come through and that it feels like you're really ready to go and that there's a lot supporting you this month. Especially since we only have one retrograde planet. Only Pluto is retrograde until the end of the month, when Saturn stations retrograde on June 29th. So this is going to be a great year for you based on your solar return energies. Be sure to check out my program called How to Read Your Solar Return Chart, where it gives you insight into the themes of the next 12 months. This is really vital to get an understanding of what's coming up for you. The universe is providing you with a roadmap in your solar return. The universe is going to show you where your sun in Gemini or your sun in Cancer is going to be most alive by house. So if your solar return sun is in the first house, that's a very different energy than if your solar return sun is in the fourth house or the eighth house or the 10th house. So that alone gives you an understanding of what to do with your energy that is going to bring you new life, new opportunities, and going to resonate with what shows up for you. Then, of course, you'd want to see where your solar return moon is in your solar return chart, as that's where change happens. That's where your emotional world is going to be the most active. And it's also going to reveal more of what you need, especially by astrology sign. That solar return moon could be in any of the astrological signs. And then it's going to be in a house in a solar return chart that shows you where that change is occurring. So this is also great insight into what the year ahead offers you. So do check out that course. It is on sale for 50% off with coupon code BIRTHDAY. And it's a course that you're designed to come back to every year. So you buy it once and then you come back and check it out every year and see what lies ahead in your next solar return cycle. So how to read your solar return chart will be a link below the podcast. You can also find it on my website at mollymccord.online. I hope this is really useful for you in not only knowing the universal themes ahead, but in helping you with your own astrological knowledge and applying it in your life. So as always, have a beautiful month ahead. Thank you so much for joining me for this podcast. I'll be back every Monday and Wednesday for a new episode. Have a beautiful June, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.